My name is Janet. Standing here in the midst of the Neatville Chamber of Commerce holiday event, I can still feel the tension in the air. The room is filled with soft lighting, holiday greenery, and people wearing polite smiles that don't quite reach their eyes. My father stands across the room, surrounded by a group of local business owners and a banker. His face tightens ever so slightly as he spots me, a reaction that only someone who has studied him as closely as I have would notice. It all started on Christmas Eve. I was at my parents' house outside Seattle, helping to get everything ready for the holiday. I had no idea that in my father's vision of a better future, there was no place for me. He didn't yell or scream. He simply told me, in a calm voice, as if he had rehearsed it in his head, that it would be best if I stopped being a part of their lives and let him move forward on his own. I wasn't shocked. Deep down, I had been waiting for this moment for years. Our family had a way of using me piece by piece until they decided my independence was no longer useful to them. So, I told him I would respect his decision. I packed my bag, got in my car, and left. By the next morning, I had quietly removed myself from all the behind-the-scenes work that my name had been holding together. I didn't make a scene, threaten anyone, or beg. But by Christmas night, my phone was filled with missed calls. There were 36 of them, mostly from my father, a few from my sister Lily, and 2 from unknown numbers. A message from my father's lawyer, Mr. Harris, said they were dealing with a serious legal and financial problem. I work as a senior financial compliance analyst for a large bank in Seattle. My job is to pore over financial documents, looking for the things that others try to hide: missing disclosures, weak financial explanations, inconsistent funding sources, and signatures that come in too late. My father had always made fun of my job, calling it boring paperwork and me paranoid. But whenever he needed something reviewed, organized, or corrected, I was the first person he called. This time, it was a beach house in Southern California. My father had been talking about it all fall, dropping hints about beach weekends, family vacations, and how it would show everyone how successful he was. On the surface, the deal seemed straightforward, with a down payment, a reserve account, a lender, and a broker. But I knew better. It was the same old story: a shiny facade held together by selective disclosure and the assumption that someone, usually me, would fix the problems before they became too big. My name was attached to parts of the documentation because I had previously reviewed the supporting materials and cleared up some inconsistencies. My father knew that my involvement made others feel more comfortable. He counted on me to be there, to smooth things over. But he didn't understand that trust can be withdrawn the moment it's abused. On Christmas morning, after a few hours of sleep, I opened my laptop and started removing my name from everything related to the purchase. I sent a formal notice stating that I was no longer involved in any documentation review, reserve verification, or communication regarding the deal. I documented every step, knowing that my father would try to paint me as the bad guy when he couldn't use me anymore. By early afternoon, the consequences started to show. Questions about the reserves went unanswered, the communication chain stalled, and the broker grew nervous. I realized then that I wasn't the one causing their future to collapse. I was just no longer carrying the weight they had hidden behind me. That night, as I looked at my phone with 36 missed calls, I couldn't help but think about how quickly things had changed. Less than 24 hours earlier, my father was so sure that life would be better without me. Now, he was desperate for my help. The voicemails started with anger. Lily accused me of ruining Christmas, of being too stubborn. But then the tone changed. Her later messages were short and urgent, telling me to call my father. My father's messages followed a similar pattern. First, he was defensive, then he started rewriting history, saying it was all a misunderstanding. Around 9 p.m., I received a text from Mr. Harris. It simply said, "We're facing a serious legal and financial problem. Please call me as soon as possible." I read it several times, letting the words sink in. It was clear that the issue had moved beyond the family and into the realm of legal and financial consequences. I called Mr. Harris the next morning. He greeted me with a sense of urgency. He said there were serious concerns about the California purchase file, that the lender had flagged inconsistencies in the reserves and liquidity, and that the deal was at risk of collapsing. I asked him if my name was still being used after I withdrew in writing. There was a brief pause on the line, and then he admitted that my prior involvement had created expectations, and that my sudden withdrawal had raised unanticipated concerns. He explained that my father's business liabilities were being scrutinized more closely. An old contractor debt that had seemed manageable on paper now looked much worse when combined with the new reserve questions. There was also a problem with the family's available liquidity. Lily had drained a family credit line much more than expected, which meant the financial cushion my father had projected was much thinner than it appeared. Mr. Harris asked if I would provide a short written clarification to steady the file. He said it was about restoring confidence and preventing misunderstandings. But I knew what he was really asking. He wanted me to lend my name one more time. I told him calmly that I would not provide any clarification or reassurance. I reminded him that I had withdrawn in writing and that any further communication without my authorization was not valid. He tried to persuade me, saying it could be very serious for my father. I told him it already was. I said, he told me he'd be better off without me, and I'm respecting his decision. After that, he shifted tactics and warned me about how ugly things could get if the lender believed material facts had been presented misleadingly. I found out later that my father still went to the Neatville Chamber of Commerce event that week. He had spent weeks talking about the California beach house as if it were a done deal, trying to impress local business owners and lenders. Even after the deal started to fall apart, he was still pretending it was real. That's why I decided to go to the event. I didn't go to cause a scene or get revenge. I went to make sure my name stopped being used in places where I was no longer welcome. When I walked in, my father saw me first. His face tightened, and my mother turned pale. Lily's expression turned defensive. I took my time, spoke to a few people I knew, and accepted a glass of sparkling water. Then I walked over to my father and his group. I looked at him and asked evenly, "Dad, did you update the lender that I'm no longer involved with the file?" The conversation around us stopped abruptly. My father gave a short laugh and said, "This really isn't the place." I replied, "Then it should have been handled when I withdrew in writing." I then asked if he had disclosed the contractor debt when the reserve questions came back. This caught the attention of the banker. Lily told me to stop, saying I was humiliating the family. I turned to her and said, "It stopped being private when my name kept being used after I said no." My father's voice dropped when he answered me, a sign of his quiet anger. He said I was being emotional. I looked straight at him and asked the most important question, "Were you still using my name after I withdrew in writing?" The banker spoke before my father could. He asked directly if there had been reliance on my ongoing involvement in the purchase package. Another man in the group, a business owner my father had been trying to impress, stepped back. My mother tried to intervene, saying we were all family and it was just a misunderstanding. I looked at her and said, "A misunderstanding doesn't usually come in writing the night before Christmas." Lily tried again, accusing me of thinking I was better than everyone else. I let her rant because her rage looked childish next to my calm. I then said, "I didn't come here to embarrass anyone. I came here because I'm not going to let my name keep working in rooms where I'm no longer welcome." There was nothing left to say. I set down my glass, adjusted my coat, and walked out. As the doors closed behind me, I heard the room start to buzz again, but it was a different kind of energy, a tense, murmuring rhythm. 2 nights later, my father asked me to come to the house. My mother and Lily were waiting at the dining table, as if they could somehow reset the situation. My father immediately started rewriting Christmas Eve, saying he had spoken in anger. My mother said it was stress, and Lily said I shouldn't have taken his words literally. I reached into my bag and placed my printed emails, timestamps, and withdrawal notices on the table. The room went quiet. My father accused me of humiliating him and sabotaging the family, but the truth came out. He admitted that he had assumed I would delay buying my own condo if the beach house needed more money and that I would always step in to protect the family. I looked at him and said, "You didn't ask for help. You budgeted my future like it already belonged to you." Then I stood up, took my bag, and left. For the first time in years, I felt free. The consequences for my father were severe. The California beach house deal collapsed within days. The lender discovered the weak reserves, half-truths, and false assumptions, and terminated the purchase. The deposit became a fight, and my father lost not only the property but also his reputation. The fallout didn't stop there. Old contractor debts resurfaced, vendors tightened their terms, and the family credit line became less forgiving. My father was forced to sell equipment, let workers go, and eventually sell a large portion of his business at a very low price. Lily also had to face the consequences. She had to give up her luxury apartment and her SUV. At first, she blamed me, but as reality set in, she had to adjust. She moved into a smaller place and picked up extra work. My mother lost her ability to pretend that everything was okay. Her friends pulled back, and her social life became strained. As for me, a few weeks after the whole ordeal was over, I closed on my condo in Seattle. It was paid for with my own hard-earned money, and there were no hidden liabilities or family demands. I signed the final documents and felt a sense of peace. I was finally ending the long-standing argument between my family and my independence. I also made sure to take care of my grandmother, Helen, separately and quietly. I didn't want my distance from my parents to turn me into a cold person. I left because I finally understood that caring and being used are not the same thing. My father thought he could get rid of me emotionally and still use my professional credibility. He was wrong. The price of his wish was far higher than he ever imagined. And I learned that sometimes, all you need to do is stop rescuing those who take your strength for granted. Boundaries don't destroy families, they reveal them.